All right, guys. So you should have read through the case. Anybody can quickly tell me what it's about and what they got from it, and then basically share some of the inputs that you would have. And as you saw, this is an older exam, so you used to have to type in all the information. So you not even got the data file fully populated. So there is no you have to type in all the inputs. Those don't come in the Excel file. The log that you create, you have to type in all the information in the log that you created. So they have kind of made the exam a little easier now versus back in the day. All right. So let's just be a little bit grateful for that. So the question again, what you got from the case? What are some of the inputs that you saw? And is in a sense, what is it trying to solve? What issues these people are having that they're trying to now solve? I remember it's a phone session still, so if you don't know participate, then obviously you know how the session will go.
Sir, based on what I saw, the JUTC basically they have a system that they've been using from 1998, and the essence of that initial system was like they basically used to like they had all of this information and everything like in terms of the rates for the different routes and the different charter rates and going to different areas like rural areas and all those places. And because of that, no, however, they've been encountering some difficulties with the charters and the services, and in their effort to introduce or improve the financial standing of the JUTC, they want to implement a system um, to help make the experience a lot easier. And they're asking you to design a charter service analysis law to basically help with that aspect of the company.
All right. Well, you kind of there almost, but I think if the first it kind of tell you exactly what it is in the first, because it's not a large case in terms of information or write-up still, right? So it basically tell you to help to analyze the viability of the charter. So whether or not it makes sense for them do the charters. That's all them really are trying. So as I kind of tell most of you guys, especially those who would have been in my class, so well the main thing is not really the whole Excel and access part. That's not the difficulty in completing the exam or passing the exam. Is really understanding what is being asked in the case, and you guys are equipped to do that even without understanding anything about Excel or access. So just kind of get an understanding of what the case is asking, what is it. So forget about Excel access for a little bit and just, all right, my read this document, what am I asking for, basically. What problem them I have, what am I asking for solve. Anybody have Miss Crosby email can send it to her, send the paper to her. And so just share your email and then somebody will send it to you, please. All right. So hopefully we would have gotten exactly what they're doing. So they're trying to find out whether or not the charters are viable, right? And there are some costs that are associated with these charters. So these are the expenses. So they have tire costs, and they gave us a formula for that. Fuel costs, they give us a formula for that. To wear and tear, and they give us a formula, right? They stated further. So how do you know determine whether or not a charter is viable? Them say charters are considered viable. Um, by the CSO should earn so basically if it earn a minimum of a minimum return of 55%. So that's the main thing. Then we see that there is another charge here that they say they have. Where is that again? The 12%. So exit to design. All right, so it's a charge, a 12% surcharge. Somewhere here. So that viable.
So look at the introduction section.
Go again?
Look at the introduction, sir. Of the top.
Oh yeah, further down.
Now further at the top.
Oh, I missed.
Yes, so the last sentence in the introduction.
Oh yeah, I saw it. Yeah, so I see. I kind of glanced through it. All right, so here they're basically saying, so they told us about everything. So now the buses can be chartered to take any size group around the KMTR and various rural areas. So they calculate charter rates to rural areas based on road trip distance. So for example, this distance from Kingston to Ochi is 72 kilometers and 72 kilometers return, right, from Ochi. Therefore, the round trip distance is 144 kilometers. So if they ask us to calculate round trip, we know that is the distance times 2, basically, to give us the round trip, right? And they say, however, round trips exceeding 200 kilometers will incur an additional surcharge of 12%. So already we see some stuff here. We see how to calculate the round trip. And we're now stating that there's a surcharge of 12% if the round trip is greater than 200 kilometers. So those are the stuff. And then we have the log that they ask us to create. So let's go further now to the details. So after you'd have been given the log which you are to create, they'll basically give you further explanation or details for the log, basically outlining what each field is for, and you want to read through so you basically understand what is being asked, right? So we have the charter rate. The rate charged the charter bus for the specified destination, so that's a given. The amount the customer pays, so the surcharge. The total charter charge, they said this is basically the surcharge plus the charter rate. Then we have these expenses that we need to calculate, so fuel costs, tire costs, wear and tear, driver costs, and then the profit. So it would be everything you charge in the person minus the expenses, and that will give you the profit. And then you need to determine whether or not the minimum return was met, a yes or no for that one. All right, we have further the charter rates table. So depending on the bus type, they have different rates. So for tire consumption, they said they charge what? $2.20 for the standard bus. Articulated $2.88, double articulated $3 and stuff. And then we have the fuel consumption rate as well, so per kilometer. So those are given. And then you have two types of wear and tear. So one, if it is less than or equal to 200 kilometers, and another rate if it is greater than 200 kilometers. Then these are some other expenses. So the cost of fuel and the driver cost, which is 20% of, I think if you look here, the amount the bus driver receive for driving the bus to the charter destination, and it is 20% of the charter rate. So we could basically, so without knowing anything about Excel again, you could proceed to creating the input section. So all we have to do there is list all the inputs. And for me, I look at inputs to be any figure any dates, any percentage, anything at all that I see in the case, I write it down as an input that I could potentially use in my calculation. All right, so let's start that on right now. And so what I did was to just copy the table, so this particular table that they have here, and paste it in Excel. So this is now the table, the data that's copied from the Word document, now pasted in Excel. All right, so again, nobody is supposed to get 0 on the exam because simply put in the name of the company, the title of the page, and the current date using the today function, you'd have gotten marks for these. Not marks, a mark and probably a half for just entering the name of the company, title of the sheet, and the current date. So that's all. And you don't even look on the case yet, and you already have 1 or 1.5 mark for doing this, all right? So just do a quick merge and center.
But sir,
Yeah, man, I'm
that
listening.
the way you label that, the J input, I'm assuming that wouldn't be a appropriate way to label it if you're doing the exam. Or is it okay to label it as input?
It's okay, man. You could input sheet, input section. We're not going to kill you. Once you put the name of the company, the
Okay,
title of the sheet. So in this case, it's the input sheet, right?
okay,
So you give it the appropriate title. But for the input sheet, it is the input sheet. So there isn't much around it. And the current date. And for me, I prefer using the long date format. This is just preference. But once you have these 3 elements, you're on you can't get 0 for the exam. All right. All right. So then next we need to explore and also give it the name that the sheet itself, the name that the question states. So it tells us to call it input. So I name the sheet input. All right. So we need to now prepare add the data there. So most of these we're using as input. So cost of fuel. But for you to get full marks for these elements or inputs that you enter, you have to ensure that they're properly formatted. So in this case, it should be currency. Yes, it is. So ensure that you go through and you select them to be the right format. The driver cost is a percentage. So again, ensure that it's properly formatted. Even the data that's in the table, all of these are currencies, yes. So ensure that it's formatted. The same for the fuel consumption. Let's just check to see if that is a rate or a current. Well, for this is just a rate, so not necessarily a currency. So we'll leave it as is. These were a percentage for the wear and tear. So we'll format them. All right, so let's just label the stuff proper. Any other input? So we have driver cost, cost of fuel, and we have this table. We still need to fix up the table. Let's just leave it there for now. Any other things that we need to add to our input? Any other data, information that we need to add to input section?
I think there was a rate, the rate that they gave, the 55%.
All right, so definitely and I see that look like Alia. I'm not certain how you pronounce the name, but that's just a surcharge. So let's put the surcharge as well. The surcharge is 12%. And we also have thing we care so what the
There's
minimum
something,
requirement, right?
yeah, something there, the minimum return.
Yeah, so I just call it minimum requirement or return, any one of them. And this was 55%, so 0.5 and then just 55 and format as percentage, 55%. So would have added these elements, right? Your driver costs, your cost of fuel, and we need to just fix up this table now. So we can call it charter rates. And I'm just going to merge and center this. All right, you don't have to get crazy for your final exam in terms of formatting. The main important thing is that it looks okay. So the colors, you don't need to go through and color up everything and all of that. Just ensure that it's properly labeled and we can see the headings and stuff like that. So this was tire consumption rate. So let me fuel consumption rate, wear and tear rate. All right, so I can remove this and let me just center these. So the wear and tear. All right, so for the wear and tear, we have two parts. So the 200 less than or equal to 200 kilometers. So I'm just going to put all of this here. And this is now greater than 200 kilometers. All right, so we have the tables here. So for all the, I think most of the data that we would need to use in our calculation. Anybody have any idea how we plan to use this table? So this part here, so let me just put a little space here. How we plan to use this section? Or how can we leverage or use the table there? What will we use this for to determine what?
I think it was the first part when they said you have one of four types of buses, and they gave you, and based on the expenses of each bus. But you'd have define it, right? I'd assume you define it as
Yeah,
a
man. All
category.
right. So yeah, so it's basically telling you the rates that you're going to use for each type of bus, as you're saying. And Dylan basically pointing out that we'll be using it in a VLOOKUP to determine the tire consumption, the consumption cost, the fuel consumption cost, and also the wear and tear cost. So we need to use it in a VLOOKUP. The fact that which option for VLOOKUP we'll be using, by the way, because this is the data that we'll have, right? Ultimately, so we'll have the bus type, and we'll be calculating the fuel costs. All right. So James said VLOOKUP false. You care to share why you say VLOOKUP false, James? All right. So hopefully, so for this, basically, we're trying to match back the type of bus. We're not using a range, definitely, but more specific, we're using the type of bus, trying to find the type of bus, right? So it has to be exactly, so we have to match it exactly. So it's either it find the bus type or it don't find it. So we need an exact match. All right, so when it finds standard, it's just standard alone stuff it must show. Articulated stuff alone it must show. All right, so we have the input. And if we're using VLOOKUP, so the rules that we have to satisfy, we know we're using VLOOKUP false, so we know that whatever value we're looking for has to be in the leftmost column of the table. So in this case, we were trying to find the type of bus, which are these, So they would have to be in the first column in our table, which we see here. And that's really the only rule that you have to satisfy there. And it is already set up for us. We don't have to worry about it. So the post type is there. So next we can name this or define this range. And for the table array that we're using, we name or use the data part. So we don't include the headings any at all for this. So it's just a part where we have data. So we start at the first point at which we have data, so which will be here, all the way down to the last point which we have data. So this would now be our range, and we can call this charter rates. All right, so that's our charter rates. And we can proceed to do the same for these. So this would be cost of fuel. COF, or let me just make it a little longer. So cost. And this is driver costs. And surcharge. And also main requirement. All right, so what you also need to note is that when you're naming the values is the data you name, right? And not the label. Because I've seen people in exam end up naming this side. Well, it's the data you want to name. So this part you'll name. So let's just go through again. So I have my table array. That's what I'm going to use for VLOOKUP, and I call that charter rates. I now have my cost of fuel, my driver costs, surcharge, and my minimum requirement, right? So that would be your input section. And just as I say, you can't lose marks for having too much stuff in your input, but you lose marks if you don't have what is required. So it's better you put more stuff there than leave out something. So any dates that you saw, just ensure that you put it in. Any percentage, anything at all, just add it to your input section. All right. And I think normally for your exam, this would be about 4 to 5 marks for your input section. So one, the formatting that you would have done. Two, identifying the inputs and naming them, formatting, also including the heading right here. So that would basically give you 5 marks in total for the input section. Again, we don't really know much about Excel now. All we did was to just enter some information in a sheet that would have seen in the case. So very straightforward, nothing complicated, and that's 5 marks already that you're going in your final exam. All right, so next let's look at the other question. All right, so now it asks us to create the service analysis log, and which is shown in figure 1 in its own worksheet, and name the worksheet analysis. Create the calculations needed to determine, and then it lists out the stuff that we're doing. Normally you only get so much to calculate, right? But as I say, I just like this case because it gives us a lot to work with, and kind of show you some stuff that you can do with some nested functions. So I like using it. So we're going to calculate these. So I copied the data from the Word document and paste it here in sheet 2. So that's all the information that I got. And again, still don't know much about the case. And you're able to get some marks nonetheless. What's the name of the company again? So it's JUTC. The title of the sheet now, what they call it?
Charter service analysis log.
Okay.
Charter service analysis log.
All right, so that's it. and the current date. Again, you pick up some marks, and we still haven't done a single calculation as yet. As I said, nothing crazy for the exam. This is good enough in terms of formatting. If you want, you could add probably some borders or something like that, but don't get too crazy. So again, you are going to look through the log that you're doing or the data that you're providing, and you're going to ensure that they are properly formatted. So in this case, the charter rate, that's currency, so you would format it as currency. Ensure that you do that. Even the data that you're given, so not just the ones that you would have calculated, right? So you'd have formatted those. All right, so the first one we're calculating is the round trip distance. So is this calculated? What's the formula for round trip distance? Anybody, somebody? All right, so it's your trip distance times 2. All right, so normally we try to avoid putting constants in our formula, but for this one, it's okay. But if it was something that they call, just because I multiply 2, but if it was something that they call a round trip factor, then you would put the round trip factor in the input and reference it here, right? Instead of typing the 2. But this works. And then we copy this down. All right, so now we're calculating the surcharge. What did they tell us about surcharge? What's the rate and when do we charge or apply this surcharge?
They said the surge charge is when it exceeds a certain amount, over 200 kilometers, you charge 12%.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so cool. So like for me still, how my approach to the cases in general, or I guess any problem that I have, is to basically break it down as simple as possible, right? So I know what's the rate for the surcharge. So it's 12% of the charter rate. I know that already. But they tell me when I should apply the surcharge. And both yourself and Ali are saying it's when. So we say if the round trip distance is what? Greater than 200 kilometers. So for me, I don't want to put the 200 here, right? So I'm going to ensure that I have that in my input. So just in case this should change again, so I'm just going to call this surcharge distance and put the 200 kilometers here. Notice that, all right, let me just ensure that I remove this. So this should be 200. Notice I don't put 200 km. You want to put the actual values here. So if it's something that has a unit, put the unit somewhere else, but put the values here only, right? So it is 200 kilometers. So to let everybody know, I put round trip distance and then I put km in bracket. Say it's 200 kilometers for the round trip. For the surcharge distance. So in this case, you say if the round distance is greater than the, let me just name it quickly and call it surcharge distance. You can just use left aligned still. So we're saying no. Probably in most cases. So when we give you those stuff, you try to use them as input. So you would have basically lose a mark for not adding it as an input, and then you would lose a mark or a mark here for not using cell referencing in this part. So let me just underscore that point again. So in order to get most of your marks, you have to use cell referencing. So which means that you need to one, create the input and then reference the input. I saw somebody basically complete a log and they weren't able to get any mark for the final exam for that log that they did because they just typed in the values didn't use any cal. So they work it out somewhere and just type in the values there. And you couldn't get a mark. It's not like you get any you get a mark for the right answer. So how we view this is just looking at the formulas that you do and the approach that you take. So that's how you're scored. All right, so let's go back to this now. So it's if the round trip distance is greater than, and we call it what, surcharge distance, then I'm just going to put a placeholder here to say 1, we're going to charge the surcharge, right? As 2, we're not going to charge any surcharge. Everybody understand what I just did? Are there any issues with what I did a while ago?
No, sir.
So it's just a placeholder for now. So again, I say I just try to simplify everything. So my ultimate goal right now is just to determine whether or not we're charging this surcharge, whether the surcharge should be applied. And I say if it should be applied, just put a 1. If not, put a 0. I'm just going to copy down to just check to see if the formula is working. All right, so I see a 0 here. And when I look in the round trip distance, it is 144, which is less than 200 kilometers. So then really I shouldn't charge any surcharge. So this is right. So I can now move on to the other part. I need to now work out how surcharge is calculated. And from the case, it told us that it would have been 12% of the charter rate. So it would be the charter rate times 12%, and I think we just call that surcharge. So then that would be our surcharge, and we'll format that again. So accounting currency won't kill you for that. So now we determine when we would have charged the surcharge.
Sir, oh, you're not adding it to the something there, the charter rate.
Well, no, they just tell us that the surcharge, well, its total charter charge would be this plus this. But normally still, like the more recent exams, they would have removed the surcharge column and tell you to include it in the total. So you'd have put this if statement here, and then as you say, add it to the charter rate in there. But that's fine, we still have to do it here now. So they said the total charter now charge is the charter rate plus the surcharge. So it'll be equal to, if you want to use some, you can use it. If you just want to use a plus, you can as well. So that's a surcharge plus the charter rate, and that would give you your total charter charge. Now, fuel costs. How did it tell us to work out fuel costs? What's the formula for fuel costs? Just look quickly upon the document and tell me the formula for fuel costs.
Question though, sir. How do you get the it to be blank rather than have 0?
You use accounting. The format is accounting.
But it doesn't really matter, does it?
No, man, I'm saying that don't matter. That's neither here nor there. We're not gonna kill it for that. Accounting or currency, they pretty much can work interchangeably. All right. All right, so for fuel cost now, what's the formula for fuel cost? So let's scroll up. It's a fuel cost, fuel consumption rate, times the cost of fuel, times the distance traveled. So there are three components to your fuel cost. All right, thanks, Jerry. So three components for your fuel cost. We have the fuel consumption rate, the cost of fuel, and distance traveled. All right, the others are fairly straightforward. I mean, the cost of fuel and distance traveled, those we see. So we don't need to worry about those right now, but we need to get the fuel consumption rate. How will we get the fuel consumption rate? Where is that located?
The table that is the charter rates.
All right, so the fuel consumption rate, we have it in our charter rates that we define, right? And based on this, what we'll be using what? VLOOKUP to get the consumption rate. So if we use VLOOKUP, which column we want this to return? Which column number? Based on what we have here.
3, sir.
3?
No.
Fuel consumption rate.
Yeah, return.
Yeah, man, you're right, man. You're right, man. 1, 2, 3. And so I go fuel consumption. You're right, man. So it will be this one. All right, so let's get the fuel consumption rate only. So you guys says VLOOKUP, right? Our lookup value, we're trying to find the type of bus. Where we're trying to find this type of bus? In our charter rates table. And you said it would be what? Column 3, we're returning, and the option for VLOOKUP is false. So we return the fuel consumption rate only. And it seemed all right. So if we look for articulated, come in our input, articulated, the consumption rate is 0.23. So seem like we're on the right path. So then next, what other component is in our formula? So cost of fuel, so times, and I think we call that cost of fuel. So that's it right there in our input, and we name it so we're able to use it. And then next, it's our distance traveled, which would be here. And we format this. And then all of that would be our fuel costs. Any issues with the fuel costs? All right, seems like everybody good with that so far. So let's proceed. All right, so tire costs. What's the formula for tire costs?
Sir.
It said it, yes?
Sir, I'm sorry, you could just go back to the fuel cost, please. Let me see the formula.
All right, so the only tricky part was this VLOOKUP.
No, I got that part, yeah. Okay, all right, thanks.
Well, everything else straightforward. So it's the cost of fuel times the distance traveled. All right?
Yeah, thanks.
All right, so next we're looking at what else? The tire cost, which is the tire consumption rate times the distance traveled. And again, for this, the tire consumption rate. So let's look at, is just here in the table as well. But this time we need what? The second column. So the same VLOOKUP, but we just return in the second column this time. So the formula again. Consumption rate. So let's get the rate first. Go ahead.
I'm sorry for the VLOOKUP, right? And when you find in the, is it a case where, but you should include when you're naming the you're looking up from, should you name it like adding the headings, or you should put the data fields?
All right, I'm not sure exactly. So let me just finish this and then I'll come back. All right, so go again with the question.
sir, you know how we have the input table, your name in it. I'm asking
Mm-hmm.
if you include the what you call,
The column
or it's
headings?
just
No, no. No,
okay.
see, I only include the part where I have data.
Okay, sir.
If you do that, if you get a VLOOKUP true to do, if you do it by including the headings, then you're going to run in problems. It's not a big deal when you use you do it that way with the VLOOKUP false. It's incorrect, but it still works. But this is how you want to do it. Say you name the part that contains data only. All right? That's the range that you use, not the column headings for the table array.
Excuse me, sir. Can you go back on the? I did not see the something there, the fuel cost. My internet went out a while. Oh, all right, sir. Cool, cool. All right, thanks, sir.
All right, so for tire cost, we say it's the tire consumption rate times the distance traveled. And to get the tire consumption rate, we're using the VLOOKUP. And we say return the second column. So if we look back at our input, our tire consumption rate would be in column 1, 2, the second column. And then we're multiplying this by the distance traveled, which is, where is that again? Round trip distance. All right, so far these have been straightforward, right? So normally for your final exam, you'll get a few columns that easy one too, whether you're adding some dates or you're adding two numbers, you're multiplying two numbers, so nothing great. So just to get your feet wet, they'll give you that. You'll get some simple VLOOKUP straightforward again, or not some, one or two VLOOKUP that's straightforward. And then you will get one that requires some nesting now, which is where we're at with the wear and tear. So for the wear and tear, the formula for wear and tear is your wear and tear rate times the charter rate. So again, these are two components to this formula. So the wear and tear rate times what again? The charter rate. So in our case, we know where the charter rate is, so we just need to find the wear and tear rate. So in finding the wear and tear rate, we again examine our table that we're using before, and we see that there are two possible wear and tear rate depending on the type of bus, right? Depending on the distance traveled for each type of bus. So again, as I said, my approach is to just make the thing as simple as possible. So in this case, I'm going to return a wear and tear rate, just anyone. Whether it be over 200 kilometers or less than or equal to 200 kilometers. I just go and pick one. So I'm just going to use a VLOOKUP again. And this is the bus that we're looking for. And the table array in our case, still our charter rates. And the column index, I'm just going to call this column 4 for now. And the option for VLOOKUP is false. Let me revisit this one now. So in this case, the columns that I have would be 1, 2, 3, 4. So column 4 would be everything that is less than or equal to 200 kilometers, whereas column 5 would be the wear and tear rate if it is greater than 200 kilometers. So the one that I just found a while ago would be what? If. So would be if the distance traveled is less than or equal to, I'm just going to call it, remember I call it surcharge distance, right? The 200. then I am using this VLOOKUP. Everybody see that? Else, which VLOOKUP, which column I want it to look at? So now it is greater than 200 kilometers. Which column I want it to return? Column 5. So I'm just going to copy this back. And paste it, and then change the column here to be 5. So I finished the if statement. So now I would have used this to determine my wear and tear rate. So let's just check this. For this one, it is 322, which is greater than 200 kilometers. So for articulate, so we know it's column 5, it should return. And there you go, it returned the 20% versus the 18%. So it seems to be working. So what we need to add to this now is the other portion of the formula, which is our charter rate. So multiplying it by the charter rate. All right, so if you notice, we're able to extract this portion, the charter rate, because what I did was to say, hey, use this if statement to determine whether or not we're using column 4 versus column 5, and then you multiply the result of that to the charter rate. So that's one way. You could have also, so it's another cool way that you could do it as well. Let me just put this here. Let me copy this one and show you how next way you could do it. So still a listed function. However, in this case, what we want to determine is which column to use, 4 or 5. So we could actually put the if statement here. Same if statement that we just used to say if the distance traveled is greater, all right, let's use less than or equal to reflect exactly what we have. If it's less than or equal to that, then what we're doing? Want it to use column 4, else want it to use column 5, and then you close it. So you could use this and multiply the result by the same, where is it again? Charter rate. And both will basically give you the same calculation. So whichever option you use would be fine. But I was just showing you that it's possible to put the if statement inside of a function itself. All right. Any issues so far, guys?
None, sir. Well, not for me.
Sir, so sir,
Yeah,
if it's not greater than 200, what would the do? As in, what would the formula do? Because I realized it only said that if it's greater than 200, then you would multiply it by they would multiply what you found in the formula for the.
all right, let's follow now.
Okay.
Still. It's 2 parts of the if statement, you know. So if you look at the if statement here, right? It has 3 parts. The test that you're doing, right? Which is this one, we call logical test. Then 2, what it should do if this test is true. So in this case, it's if it is true, then so in this our instance, it is less than or equal to 200 kilometers. Then we're going to use column 4, right? So now they say what happens if this thing is greater than 200 kilometers in our case, then we're going to use a VLOOKUP with column 5. So it basically checks for both of them though. But then we say the end result that you get. So this is where the if statement finishes. So this is gives us our wear and tear. Then multiply the result of that by the charter rate. I don't know if that's what you're asking. That's what I understood from what you asked.
Sir,
Yeah, man, go ahead, Ms. Brown.
is it possible we could use a different formula? I don't come with one yet, but we could find just something that is less complicated.
Like this, what I show you as the second one, man.
So
The
two of
second
them
one are less complicated. Two of
so
them
what's it?
complicated. Well, that's at the aim still. Like you get one, so you gonna get that. So if you do the question and you know see one will seem complicated, that means you do something wrong. So there's one column that will give you that should be nested.
Sir.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, could you go back over the second for me? Because when I realized that when you did it, you got 5,000 for the second for A6
No man,
part.
I did mix it up. I did mix it up because I used the wrong bus type.
Okay. But sir, could I see it back
For this
again?
one, yeah man, I did. All right, so let me just, I'm going to do it. So just bear with me. I put it over driver cost, right? Still wearing, you know, one. So just be a bit lazy and copy out the VLOOKUP here. And again, this is not driver cost I'm working out. All right, so we're good with that, but I'm saying would use the if statement where we have the column position. So we say if
You got yourself.
the distance traveled
No.
is less than or equal, I'm just using it exactly, less than or equal the surcharge distance, which is the 200. Then we say use column 4, else use column 5. And then we'll close that.
Take a picture of them then.
And we're going to multiply the result of this. So where is it again? The charter rate. And you should get the same 8,000. And if we should copy all of them, go down, then they should give you the same answer. All right? Everybody good so far?
No, sir.
No, what
That's
sir?
Miss
What?
Miller or Miss Bro?
Sir, this is Miss Miller.
Huh?
Sir, this is Miss Miller. I'm just reach home, so I don't understand that part.
Oh, but you have a different something, man. You're a thing different, man.
Sir, I was watching it on my way home, but
Yeah, yeah, man. You're a thing different, man. So you
Alright.
soon get it, though. Any,
Alright,
Sir,
sir.
you soon get it, man. No worries, sir. Yeah, man. Go ahead.
sir, this driver cost, that formula that you just put in, wasn't the formula. It was, or you
No,
just,
man. Me make sure say it, man. But just that show you the different wear and tear, man. Me make sure say it, man. This is not driver cost. This is not driver cost. Remember me to say that, man.
okay.
All right, so we're good with except Miss Miller. Everybody good with the wear and tear, right? So I'm saying, so we just want to point out, so you're going to get a complex or something that requires a nested function, a column. You all get that in your final exam, right? So that is what we test for. You should look out for that. But what I want to also add is in case you don't get it then, sis. So suppose you have struggle with it and it'll give you any and all of them full. You not get it out. Any column you get in. Just do what you would think is best, meaning based on what you understand, put that formula and then move on to the next column. So even if I got fuel cost incorrect and I calculated tire cost, even if it depended on fuel cost, I would still get the full marks for tire cost. So the only marks I would lose from is calculation of the fuel cost, but I would still get tire cost. I would still get wear and tear. Just saying. So even if something is not working for you, just do what you would have been taught or what you would have practiced and move on to the next. Don't get stuck on it. I don't know if I shared this story, but I saw an exam where it was a 2-mark question, like a column that literally valued 2 marks. People got stuck on and didn't complete the log, and most of them failed the exam because of that. Where you could have just basically say, yo, that thing not work, I'm left that. Put in what my thing's supposed to do there. Yes, it come up with NAR, number, whatever it is, still, value, error, whatever. But I put in a formula and I move. If you did do that, you'd have get most of the marks. You could have still get 98% for your exam. because you would have just missed the 2, and not even the full 2 marks you would have missed. So I'm saying if you get stuck, just move on to the next column. Because once you set it up right, because look here, if I even delete surcharge here, so yes, it said this still calculate correctly, you know. All I need to do is, all right, at the end of the exam, if I have more time, I can go back and look at it still. And then if I add in surcharge, then the answer for this one is going to come up properly. So that's the beauty about using the applications. You can move on. All right, so you do something, you move on to the next one. Don't get stuck on a single thing and screw up the exam, right? And there are marks that you can get. So even this structure in particular, if you know that an if statement, what you're doing requires an if statement, you set it up. You set up the if statement. So even if you not get the VLOOKUP part for all right, you would get the marks for setting up this part of the if statement. That's why I say I try to simplify it as much as possible. So you put a placeholder, and you go and revisit it, so I know what I need to put here, I know what I need to put here. And then you go through and you put the correct thing, or not so much the correct thing. What you would have basically come up with, you put it in place of the placeholder. All right, so that's the wear and tear. How they work out the driver cost? What percentage of what? They say it's a percentage of the total charter or the charter. Which one of them? Come on, guys, quickly. Somebody tell me the driver cost. It's in the case, this has nothing to do with Excel. So the driver cost is what? What did you say?
Sir, the driver
Nobody, somebody.
Sir, the driver cost is the bus driver
Yeah.
receive. Sir, is the amount the bus driver receive, but you're going to use the percentage that is in the charter rate.
Yeah, but how is it calculated? 20%. It's
So
a
it's
20%
20%
off.
off. Hold on.
That's what I asked. All right,
Hold
let me
on, sir.
see. All right, so Dylan, them was something for move on. Bismillah. Them say I take too long. It's a charter rated segment. So 20% of the chart. But look for it though. Ensure you see it for yourself. Because as I said, these have nothing to do with Excel right now. You just have to see the stuff in the case, and then when you see it, then you worry about Excel. But people come on and try to do the case before reading the case. That doesn't make no sense. You can't do the log without knowing what each column is for. So ensure that you read and you see what is being asked. You see what should be in each column, how it should be calculated. So in our case, we said the driver cost is 20% of the charter rate. So it's a charter rate times, I think what you just call is driver cost, driver percentage, whatever. So driver cost. And then we close, we copy that down. And then the profit now, even if they never tell you what profit is, but I'm assuming it's what you charge minus your expenses, right? So in our case, that will simply be your total charter minus the sum of all your expenses. Is there any other expenses that it mentioned outside of these? Yes, so any other charges that possible cost that was there? Yes, no, maybe. So you would look and ensure that you capture all of them and you factor them in. In this case, that is all we need. So now we need to find out whether or not the minimum requirement was met. How do we determine if this was met? If what? So look and see what minimum requirement met is and tell me how that is determined. If it is greater than what you call it, if what is greater than 55%. All right, so everybody get what Dylan basically saying. So he's saying if your profit works out to be more than 55%, so if you say equal, so we're not doing that part, we're just looking what this work out to be. So if you divide your profit by the total charter, right? And this now, the result of this is greater than 55%, then the thing is met, right? Else it is not met. So that's all this is saying. So this is the ratio that we have here. So we need to put this. So it's a if whatever we work out here, if this is greater than or equal, because it's a at least, right? Greater than or equal to 0.55, so which is what we call this mean requirement, then yes, else no. Right, and we just saw that this was 51%, so which was less than 55, and then that would be our result. Any issues so far? All right, so we're getting there. So you'd have successfully created a log, and then they'll possibly ask you some questions. What was this supposed to be called? Yes, Jada, go ahead.
Sir, can you repeat what you just did? My Wi-Fi trip out a while ago.
All right, so no, but more than half of the exam marks would be on this question, the log. So not even the input, but most half of the spreadsheet would be the log. But you only get so much to calculate. You'd probably get two less, or yeah, something like that. You only get so much to calculate though. All right, so somebody asking, that was Jada. So what we tried to do, I think Dylan was the one who stated that we would have met the minimum requirement if the profit worked out to be greater than or equal to 55% of your total charter charge, right? So what we did was to just quickly see the ratio of profit over your charter charge, which is this. And the question that I'm asking, is the minimum requirement met in this case for this result that we have? So that's your quick. Oh, our internet gone again. All right, so no. But Shaga asks again because our internet go down. You back with us, Jada? Are you were hearing? Yes, no, maybe.
Yes, sir, it's okay. You can move on. I will just probably watch it tomorrow.
All right, cool. All right, so that's a log. So let's look at the next question. You want to be asked, where is this now? Yeah, we're not gonna ask you them simple stuff here in the exam. I think why they did this because it was a long year now work. Try it again, man. Just work out the percentage first. Work out the percentage first, man. And then put the greater than or equal. And you could put the 0.55 if you wanted there. Just for test it. Then comma, what happens if the thing is true? What happens if the thing is not true? You shouldn't get an error though. All right, so I was saying before that you wouldn't get something as simple as this is. Calculate minimum and maximum for round trip. No, we wouldn't ask you that. It's probably something to use like database function or something that requires multiple criterions to use. Oh, I was just basically trying to look at how I think the solution for question 4 should look, right? So I'm saying I think it would list the bus type and then have how many get yes, something like that, right? And how many no's. I think this should kind of look like what we would want. So let's see if we can create that now. So when we're using the pivot table, we know that we need to highlight the data set. So that's a part that contains the data. So we want to include the label up top, but we'll have the column headings for the pivot table. Then insert pivot table in a new worksheet. You go OK, and then we add in. So it's a type of bus, so we know that bus type have to be there. And then it's a yes or no. So where's mean requirements? So that, but doing it like that, that's fine. It could make it look that way, but I would prefer, as I say, to have it looking like this, right? So the bus type, yes or no, put that in columns. And then you need something to count. So you can use anything. You can put back the same bus type, you can put trip distance, anything. Just going to put the bus type back on the values and it will automatically count it for me. Why? Because bus type is a text. So you can't add a text, you can't subtract a text. You can't find the average of a text. The most you can do is count the amount. So when you put it over there, it's count. But if you had used, say, the trip distance, it would sum it. So you just go to the your settings and change it from sum to count. Or if they ask you for average, then you put average, whichever. And you'd format it. But this is just numbers, so it's already formatted, so I don't have to worry about it. All right, any issues for that pivot table? So something like this, maximum 3 marks, if so much, because you see we don't really do anything at all for the pivot table in this case. Because a majority of the marks would be based on the analysis that you do, so the log, and then they kind of put the marks in some other questions. So like about 4 for the input or 5. The pivot table 3, 4. And again, for you to get full marks, you have to format it. And again, include your headings. So again, the same JUTC. The title, so I don't remember what this, you can call it viability. And put the current date as well. And I said, just preference, I like the long date format. All right, and that would be the Excel for you, right? So now let's look at another question. So let's try, we can look at any Excel functionality that you guys struggling with that you'd want to kind of coin a question along that path.
So really
By the
and
way,
truly, the ones them like the ones that ask about conditional formatting.
them stuff we might talk, whether conditional formatting, advanced filtering, the database functions, any one of them, you can basically, we could coin one or two questions along those paths. But which one? All right, so let's try conditional formatting then. So pre this
Sir,
question,
we could do a conditional formatting of that same question we just did a while ago instead of using a pivot table.
oh, not necessarily. You just want a conditional for who get yes. That's all I mean.
As in,
Who
may I say,
get
if like they didn't give you an option, like would you could use the conditional formatting and get the same thing, right, sir?
no, but them want numbers though, so you still would have to go
Oh,
do a count.
okay,
You'd still have to use a count if or something like that still, right?
okay.
Because they ask you for a number. All right, so let's try a conditional formatting now to say. All right, so let's keep it very simple. I'm just going to work with the one that you just stated. So highlight all trips then that would have met the minimum requirement. Everybody cool with that? So if you're seeing the screen, let me know. I'm moving the screen now. You seeing it move? Yes, no, maybe? Nobody hearing me, not hearing me?
Yes, the screen is moving. It's gone.
All right, so everybody see that question. So it's a use conditional formatting to highlight all charters that meet the minimum requirement. All right, how we know if the thing meet the minimum requirement? Quickly. Looking at the information that we have there. Come on, somebody quick. So as Alia said, if it is yes, so if this column here is yes, then the minimum requirement was met. Very simple. So if we're doing conditional formatting, we highlight the data. So in this case, we don't need the column headings to be there because the part I want to highlight to be on is the data, so these rows. So then we go conditional formatting, and we're just going to go to new rule. If you use the highlight cell rules and you only highlight a single thing, you're not going to get majority of the marks. So in case you get conditional formatting, you want to go to new rule and use formula to determine which cells to format. Then the format values that you're going to use, you come here where this formula is true. We're going to select the first row here. And we want to say if this is equal to, in quotes, yes, sir. All right, so right now, if you guys recall from addressing, so absolute versus relative, right now this is only checking cell M5, right? But where do we want it to check?
Column M.
We're wanting to check all of column M, right?
Yes.
So stay in column M and check all the rows. So we're going to say, all right, so make it stay in column M. So we'll leave the dollar sign in front of the M, and then we'll remove the dollar sign from the row to say, well, check all the rows starting at this point. Now we'll select our format. I'm just going to use a fill and using that blue. Then we go OK. And now you see it will highlight all of those charters where the minimum requirement is in. So if I should proceed now to ask you, so for same sort of question, I would say, well, all right, so how many of them? So this is the part that I think Mikhail was saying. To tell me how many people met the requirement. So then in this case, would use a count. So how many? And would use a count. Would say equal count. And we count in this row. And we're looking for if it is yes, all right? Oops. So count A, because it's text, we use count A. So when I say the conditional formatting, so you'd go to manage rules, and then you click on it and then edit rule.
Sorry, why would you put the dollar sign after M5 again?
All right, so this is my question to you now, right? So this was what we had before. Let me just put it. So you have dollar sign M dollar sign 5. You remember absolute addressing?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. So any one of the stream them that you would have been in, they would have discussed absolute addressing or addressing in general, right? So when you see the dollar sign in front of both the row and the column, what does it mean in terms of addressing? What type of addressing is?
In front of the row and the column? Come on.
Yeah. When you see the dollar sign in front of the row and the column. So the row being 5 and the column being 10.
That means it would just be row 5, it would just be the column 5 and row 5?
Yeah, so just that particular cell alone it's have a look at, right?
Okay, yes, sir.
So where you want to check? Tell me where you want to check if yes or no. Yes or no is there, or if yes is there.
From M5 to M19.
There you go. So you wanted to check all of M, right? In this case, because we already selected the area that we're checking. But so we say, all right, we want it to stay in column M. So for it to stay in column M, we say put the dollar sign in front of M, right? And then we want it to check all the rows. So we remove the dollar sign in front of the row just to check all of the rows. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, yes, sir. I understand now.
Ah, cool.
Sir.
All right, then. Yeah, man. Go ahead.
Yeah, sir, can you show me the formula?
Go again, which one?
The count format I just did a while ago was my internet went away when you were doing it.
All right. So the question is how many of them met the requirement, right? So because we're counting the text, we have to use the count A. That's what count A for. So not count A. And
Yo,
count or count A, any one of them take where you want to count. So in this case, the range that you want to count and what it is checking it for. So we're checking to see if this thing is yes. And I say use count A when you have text, is that text that is here. So if it was the profit we're checking, then you would have just used count.
so when you said the difference between a count A, what is a count A, sir? I've never heard. Is it similar to
Yeah, but
count
let's
B?
put, all right, let's just look at it still. Counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. So that's all.
And the
So the
count
same
B?
as count. Sorry, oh my bad still. It's count if supposed to be there. I'm so sorry about that. My bad. It's count if supposed to be there. It's count if supposed to be there, but count A can be used interchangeable with sorry
So
about
what does
that.
it
So
mean, sir?
count A, the what?
The count A is similar to what the count is?
The count is, yeah, but it just check for text. That's all.
Okay.
Yeah, so my bad. So I use it incorrectly. So it's count if. So we're counting this if it was yes. So that's all.
So sir,
All right. So yeah, man, go
sir,
ahead.
sir, why
Yeah,
remove the
man.
count A again? Why you say it couldn't be used?
No, because counting is counting everything still, but we want a condition that we're counting against. So that's why we have to use a criteria here.
Okay.
The count and count A don't give you the option to put in a criteria.
Oh, understand.
So it's the count if and the count ifs give you the option for the criteria. All right. So see count, it only has a value. There's nothing about criteria. Count A, the same thing, it only has a values. There's no criteria. Count if and count ifs gives you the option to use the criteria. All right, so let's see if we can take up a notch. So we want to check stuff based on multiple criteria then still. So we want to see to count all. Let me see how this semicam. How many articulated? No. All right, let's just come up with something still. So I want to find out how many articulated bus or charters met the minimum requirement and also, all right, let's not use count. All right, so let's use what's the total profit for all articulated bus that met the requirement and all coasters that traveled over 200 kilometers. So let's go back with that still. So what is the total profit for all charters for charters And what is a coaster? And coasters with, and it's for the coasters, the trip distance, right? Trip. All right. Somebody take a stab at that question and tell me the answer. What's the approach that you take for that one? So again, what is the total profit for all articulated charters meeting the minimum requirement and coasters with trip distance greater than 200 kilometers? First, tell me which function you would have probably want to use for that. One of the database functions, definitely. So you want we try to do that? So remember, when we're doing the database functions, let's say it's a total profit, so sum it over sum, right? So the database function that we'd use in this case is the dsum. Tells us what it does, but let's look at what it wants. It wants a database, a field, and a criteria range. The database would be the entire data set here, including the column headings. So we know that the field now would be the column that you want to be sum in this case, and the criteria would be this long epistle that I wrote out a while ago. All right, so in order to complete that, I'm just going to make it easy. To create a criteria range, I'm just going to copy the column headings and just paste it somewhere here. So for bus type, the first one is articulated, that's what I want. And the next condition for articulated is what still? Where the minimum requirement is met, so that is yes. Everybody following so far? Everybody following so far? Anyone not following, by the way?
Yes, sir, I'm following, sir.
All right, so we'll go. So that's the first condition, and it's the question that I type in the chat. All right. So the next, it said on coasters with trip distance greater than 200. So where would we represent the criteria for the coaster now with trip distance greater than 200 meters? Round trip distance, that is, sorry. Where would we put that in our criteria range that we're creating now?
In the same criteria range?
Yeah, man, at the same crap, but how would we structure it? Where would we put it? So we're
Sir,
here now.
if it said and greater, it would have been the same line, wouldn't it, sir?
It should, but think about how read the question again.
It said
and tell me how
what is
how you would represent that.
Of all articulated charters, the minimum requirement and the coastal trips distance greater than 200 kilometers.
All right, so you say it's supposed to go in at the same line, right? That's what you're saying because it's a and, yes?
Yes, sir, that's what I was saying.
All right, but so you could use the surcharge earlier, but we're not going to use that. We're just going to work with the 200, right? Just the round trip distance. But just to add to what Michael was saying now, so you can't, if you think about it, can you be an articulated and a coaster at the same time?
Under what, sir?
And a coaster at the same time.
Oh, no, sir.
So they are exclusive, right? So which means that not so much exclude, but they can happen the same time. So which means that although it's a and is really or it mean, if you get what I'm saying.
Oh yeah, I didn't see the because you asked about coasters now, so yeah, you'd have to put
Yes,
coasters with the coasters requirements in our next line.
in our next line, because it can be the same bus type, right? It can be coaster and articulated at the same time. So
Yes,
coaster, what was the one for coaster? It's a round trip distance would be what? Greater than 200. So would I put greater than 200 there? Notice we didn't put a kilometer or anything like that. We just put greater than 200. So this now becomes our criteria range. So then now our total profit now, based on the condition that I gave you, and that's a long one, I'll probably type it somewhere else, would now be equal. We'll use the sum function now. And it's set on the database, so it will be all of this, including the column heading, so that, right? Then next, it asks for the field. The field is going to be the label or the column position or the cell address of what you want. So in this case, it's a profit. We want to find the total profit. So it says L4, because profit label is in L4. And then the criteria now would be this one that we created down here. And then this would give us the total profit. So if we should change anything here, so we change this to say less than 200. Then the profit going to change. If we change this from cost to something else, that going to change. Huh?
No, we're not getting that, you know, sir. I get 176,000.
Well, maybe you're in the right, but I don't think you're supposed to get so much money.
Articulated and yes.
Yeah, but it's articulated and the minimum requirement is met, right?
Yes.
On coaster and the round trip distance, not the trip distance, the round trip distance is greater than 200.
Yes, sir, I have that. But I wonder if it just not sure, you know. I'm wondering if I did the dsum the correct, if I did the database set up the right way in terms of, because I copy the top table, the top part of the table, the what you call it, the labels, and just paste it, sir, and then we just fill in.
Yeah, then that's the same thing we do. Once you have these laid out the same way, then it should be fine.
And you say it's supposed to click you're supposed to click type L5 the profits section, sir.
The profits labels. We say you're not getting the same answer, Dylan, right?
No. Let me try again.
Alright, so Alias should get the same answer as me. So look like I had 2 hours wrong Ali. But that's another important.
So she got the right answer as me or you.
I don't know which one. I assume say me.
Oh. Let me see it.
The car keep on.
I'm not sure if I did, but I assume said something like that. Probably caused the error.
Well, again, you said the
Mine in 2 rows
labels up
too.
here.
Yeah.
Oh no, man, then a different label you have, man. That's the
But
wrong
mine
one.
in 2 rows too. And I still get the same answer.
And you get it.
Yeah, I got the same answer.
Not try again, bro. Not try again.
No man, so when you copy down the rules down at the bottom, how you copy it?
I copied just like
As,
that was at the heading, and it came out in the two rows same way.
or you copy it in two with the two, I don't know,
Yeah. Oh,
that
me
sound
copy it
like
now for the
magic.
Word document still, so I just paste it same way.
No man, I understand the part, but that's something supposed to have miss same way. They say you get it out. So for me, still, true man, the spelling is so hot. I copy and paste. So make sure it's your spell articulated right still. And co-star them something there.
Yes, sir. What I was saying is,
That too.
you can check the figures in the table and see your figures and sir figures match up because mine are a bit in a sir, and that probably the reason why I am not getting the answer.
Okay. All right, understood the answer. But it's not a major. All right, so it will be an OER but what I'll do is see if I can load it to YouTube, but I know that it's going to take a little while because it's how much? About 2 hours gone already. No, that's what I'm saying. I'm going to load it to YouTube as well. But it's a 2 hour long video, so it's going to take a little time to get up there. So maybe by I'm not certain, late tomorrow evening or so it might be up.
So let it be there before midnight, please.
Go again?
Ensure it's there by midnight, sir.
Sorry.
All right, here it's a good for OER available, so you can download it and add it to YouTube for them as
All
well.
right, cool.
This bro.
Sorry.
Yeah, man.
They released on the database grades and the other grades.
Jaja, you go and
Huh?
get it, man. Like, you get when is your exam? You're getting it at least
Next week.
4 days before your exam. That's okay. The database is finished still. It's just the project I give problem. All
They're
right, so
releasing
it's just
everything one time.
you know on that.
But just ask you.
Yeah, man,
No,
I'm
sir.
gonna do that.
Database, sir.
I bet we just finish that session and then like who would then my class I want
Yes,
possible.
sir.
We
Me see
can
the issue
email
now.
and
Me get sir. Because of the fact that the row or the labels, the row, label row or the row label, whatever you call it, sir,
Mhm.
it then are two cell references. It then are A5 and A6, but I only copied A6 and I left off the top part there. So
Oh yeah, that
yeah,
that
yeah.
Nikki does so she did this. She copied both of them. So I guess that's what hers were.
Okay.
All right, cool. So we're good so far. I think we would have covered that. So you guys can look at an example with an advance. You can try see how you could do the same thing here. That use the dsum function for with this criteria to do an advanced filtering. So you can try to attempt that. So that spreadsheet, I never know that we're going to go this long spreadsheet. So let me save this. So then next we're looking at the database part. So I'm not going to go through all the database. I think I'll get to like about 2 questions because I'm getting tired now. So I'll import the tables, probably do like 2 or 3 other questions there, and then allow you to kind of go through and do the rest. If I adding it to YouTube, I might finish up that part and then add that portion to the end of the video.
But sir,
And yeah,
just more so you do the report, sir. So if more so you when you do the report, please.
all right. Bakery, okay.
So
Only
you
we
say
say
a
pause
time,
if
sir.
we pause
You
now.
can do
Come
it a
on.
later time, sir. As you
I'm asking
said.
Yes, sir.
would have to pause now because yeah, I'm getting a tad bit hungry too. So let's see if we can start the database part now. So where are we? All right, so here we are now still for the database. Again, as you see how it's structured, so half of the marks it's split between the database and the Excel or spreadsheet. So what you want to do is just um, ensure that you do both parts. There are some easy marks for you to pick up in both sections. So although my preference is to complete the Excel and then move on to the database, but it really depends on your strong area. But I would be advised you with those things. Complete the, move on to the database. All right, so in an attempt to live up to their motto, I'm gonna have to read through all of this, right?
No man, you can just
All right, so all right, so I wouldn't just read through. So only conditional formatting I can ask you for color your work. If you want color it, you can color it, but I said that's a waste of time. And you don't really get marks for that. The part that you get marks for is the formatting. And formatting, I mean the right data type. So whether currency, dates, percentage, that's what they give you marks for. And the heading, nothing else. You don't get marks for color. In fact, if you color things are cheat, you cheat. Or you have too much time basically for that. All right, so I would stay away from the coloring, guys. And since I mentioned the whole cheating thing, I'm going to be so last semester we had like some issues re-cheating, and a lot of people panic. Some people it was because they said the exam was difficult and they shared the files and whatever, and that landed people in trouble. So I know if you talk to some of your colleagues or classmates from, they will tell you that they were written up for cheating and they had to go to the disciplinary body. And I'm not certain of how heavy the penalties were or the punishment were, but if people are caught this semester, we're basically, I don't know how am I gonna put it now still. Basically, we should have stated like throughout the semester, make sure we not do none of the sharing of files, sort of collaboration during the exam, because if you're found cheating, there's a monetary component to it. There's also chances that it will be on your record to say, well, you would have did some exam irregularities, and that would be on your record, on your transcript, or anything like that, right? And there are cases where it can lead to an expulsion. So like you have people, this are them last course, or one of two courses remaining. You don't want to be caught cheating on this, and you basically throw away the money where you spend for your degree. And you have to wait too much years before you can redo a degree, and you'd lose the credits that you had before. So from that, there are marks that you can pick up. Try and pick up the marks. Just calculate where you are in terms of your coursework and how many marks you need to get, and try to get those, and then you work towards it. All right, so anyway, we're on the database section, which people say is the hardest part. But to me, it is very easy because it's the same structure that you get throughout. So, all right, so we're given some tables. So we have a root table, and you get the structure of the table along with some sample records, as you can see here. And it tells us, so you have root ID, identify the bus route, serve as primary key is required, service type, identify the service type is required, origin, via destination, all of that. And we get some sample data. Then ticket fare, we have a ticket ID, number, primary key, category identifies the ticket type, service type, type of service, and the fare, how much them charge, right, for travel on the bus. And then you get the sample for that as well. And they go further to say the category CA represents cash and SC represents smart card. Then we have a ridership table now. Basically, how much people go on the bus or travel the route. So you have a ridership ID, and that is auto number, primary key, route ID, ticket ID. So all of these basically would be foreign keys from the table. Most of the times they will tell you that you should use a lookup for these because they are primary keys in another table. Use a lookup wizard. Then you have the date and time, number of passengers, how many people ride it on there. So anyway, so this is, again, so even if you never read that, you can still do this question. All you need to do is just ensure that you look through the table. So even if you don't read the case, you look through the table and you can pick up the 5 or 6 marks from this one, which is creating the tables and relating them and enforcing referential integrity. Right, so let's look at that now. So this is the Excel file. So we have the route. I think I added this route to it, so you can do that. So open the Excel file and just add the route 45 to it, route ID 45, Premium Express, Meadowbrook, Red Hills Road, and the destination is New Kingston. I don't know if anyone take that bus before. Back in the day, I used to have to take that, you know. So I put it there. So just add this to the route table. Then we have the ticket fare. I don't know where that gone. So ID, category, service type, fare. You notice for
Sir,
and then we have the right.
Sir?
Yeah?
Could you repeat this somewhere someone must add to the table, please? And
That
go
one
back.
here with highlight. So that's in the table, just add route 45. I think I should have, all right, here what I should have paused this, you know, so we had so we'll have separate recordings for the X, but it's all right. It's just work with it. Cause this is gonna be a very long video.
Just stop it and
Everybody do that? So nobody couldn't tell me so the mic mute. Like, you know, that man said nobody couldn't tell me so the mic
That
mute.
message anybody that listen to.
No, someone never hear that. Look like you might be mute when you say it to still, but we got a good 15 minutes attack still. But anyway, all right. So what did you not hear? Like, did I say anything about the database and the tables? Did you hear anything about that? Yeah, man, I think. I believe him, Miss Chambers. Come and know him say something. All right. So what I was looking at is the Excel file and versus what we're given in the structure of the table, right? For the structure. And I said we looked at the root table and all the fields were there, right? We looked through the ticket fare table and all the fields were there in the Excel file. However, in the ridership table, when we look in the Excel file, we did not see the ridership ID or rider ID, right? Anybody can tell me why that is not present in the Excel file? All right, so Ms. Chambers said,
sir?
no, it's a question for that ask, man.
Yeah,
So Ms. Chambers answered. So what the question was, we say we have ridership ID here saying the structure of the ridership table, yes? Sir Dick, so that's how you may answer.
Yeah, man. Oh, so yeah, that's when you're gonna make database choose primary key field.
See, you know what I'm going already. So I say you don't see it here, so in the ridership table. So that is not an issue. We know say because it's an auto number, so that was the question. Why is that the case? And Ms. Chambers basically I tell us because the data type say auto number for the ridership, you won't see it in the Excel file. All right. And Kimola had said it's also the primary key for the table. All right, so we're good so far. So we can do a straight import. So which I'll do. Let's just ensure that this is the right thing. And let me bring up access now.
So quickly, can you just go back on the root for me, please?
Go again with go back on the
root after I put in the Meadowbrook, my computer shut down a little while.
Oh,
right the end one.
Another computer they have use for your final exam though.
Sir, just paid for 80,000 for your computer yesterday, and when you were halfway through the spreadsheet, it said, oops, some memory something. 80,000 I cash my paper yesterday, trust me. All in one HP.
So what they rob everyone? Alright, Bakery.
Yeah, man, sir, she definitely get robbed, man.
Yeah, somebody rob you.
Hope not.
No, hopes are not relative celebrity.
Meadowbrook, go back again.
Hope is not a relative celebrity here.
No, it's not a relative, sir. Thanks. 45.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
All right, cool. So let me go back to here now. So we access and blank desktop. And guys, my tell you, exam no share no file. One of the worst thing we have to do, like when we have to go through the stuff and go through the cheating thing and prepare a report, go through the cases is a very long and tedious process. Me no like do it and me no want do it. But if me have to do it, me I gonna recommend say boy yo, them throw the book at whomever will do it still. Me no care, cause you can't give me work for do that. Like that don't make no sense. Alright, so anyway, we're calling this one. I'm gonna just call it JUTC. Alright, and we're creating that. So I'm just going to import the tables now. So anybody remember how to do that? And I should be hearing a chorus.
So we're in external data.
Yes, sir, I remember.
External data.
External data.
All right, so we're good. And as I said, that's a 5. All right, so Odin, I think I did send there are some little notes, so hopefully you guys are just making the notes in terms of the changes that we made for some of the questions. So Odi asking about where the file is. So it's on OURVLE, the past paper folder, and it's the, anybody remember what they call again? I think a 2008, some JUTC something. Just look for that. But I send it to the emails. So you could ask one of them to just email it to you as well. All right. So we're browsing to where the file is. So it's downloads, and I think is this one I'm using. All right. So this is the one that we're using. All right. And we'll just, so which one we are the first? Root goods, right? That was root ID service, so we can work with root. First row contains column headings. Make sure you have that. Can't ignore this little part, and you're choosing your own primary key, which is root ID. And you go next. And I said, for me, you guys, you don't have to do this, but it's just work for me. So that's what I normally do. Prefix my tables with TBL. You don't have to do it. That's not a requirement. So that's a root, and I check it and it in there, so I'm fine. Then next, Excel browse, and still JUTC we'll work with. And we can do ticket, right? On first row. And choose ticket ID is supposed to be the one that you're choosing. We'll just call it TBL. Ticket fare, ticket anything can work. And then next we're doing the final one now, which is browsing here. JUTC home. And we're doing ridership. First row is next, but for this we're saying let access at the primary key, and we do have to go back over why we're doing this, right? Well, I guess not, so we're good. All right, close. So let's fix up these tables. So let's start with the root, and we're going to the design view of the table. And base, so guys, you're not going to kill yourself for these in terms of the description. You're not going to put in that. The only thing you need to do is ensure. So I'm going to give you a quick, not so much a quick way, but the approach that you should take for it. So the primary keys and foreign keys, those are fixed properly. So if you're strapped for time, you're going to ensure say you fix root ID here, so. And then when you go in the other table, you fix where is the root ID. But if you have the time, you're doing your exam as normal, you go through and you just make the adjustments. So this is supposed to be 4, and service type supposed to be 20. Origin supposed to be 30. Via 30. And destination 30. All of them required, so you that changes to required, but I'm not going to do that now still for time.
Sir,
Yes?
if it not say nothing about required, we must assume say all of them are required, or whichever way it forward, we must make it.
Now, man, if it not tell us that is required, not check. Extra word that one.
Okay.
Only if it says is required, they check it. You hear me say?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. So only if it states is required, you put that. If it not say it, you're not trouble nothing, man. You just work with it as well. All right, so that's our route. Which one we do you know? Ticket fare. So let's look at ticket fare. So it's number, primary key, single, category, text 15, service type 20. So, but ensure that you understand what each of these are for, though. So, not just do it, and if you understand what I said, just still go through and check it to ensure that you know what is stated. That occurrence. All right, let's check. Good, it have all the data there, so we're fine. So the only thing is left is the ridership and design, and we know that we're going to change this one to what them say ridership ID. All right, so route ID 4. All right, so you could use the, because this is the foreign key, you could just use the lookup wizard here for route ID and say I want it to look up values. Which table do you want this to look up the values from? Great, now someone answer. Remember my time so I go root, right? Because the root, and I just want the root ID. All right, here you could do the data integrity stuff, right? And we discussed this already, so I'm not going to go through this. You guys would have seen that. So let's change this to 4 again. So if we check the lookup, it will show you that it was done. Ticket ID, the same thing. So number and single. But I'm not going to do this one with the lookup. I'm just going to leave that one as is. And date is date and time. But I think the date format, because this is an older one, it's kind of messed up. So she said month, day, year. That's what it's supposed to be in. And this have day, month, year. So there's going to be a little bit of an issue here. But for your exam, it should be fine. So I'll just put it. Yeah, man, I'm still here.
Alright, so you didn't
Still, yeah, man, go ahead.
use the lookup wizard for the ticket ID. Would it be an issue if we did? Like, would it be a major change or anything if
No, it
we did?
wouldn't. I'm just saying because it didn't ask me for it. That's why.
Okay.
I just showed you that you could do it, but it didn't ask me to use the lookup wizard.
Okay, sir.
Understand? So because it didn't ask me for any of them, I just showed you that you could in case it asks. And if it didn't ask, then you just proceed as normal and then you will relate the tables. All right, so let's move on. So number of passenger is number and long integer. All right, so let's save this. All right, these are the date why it deletes still. So I don't even sure if I want to continue with this. I don't know how to work with it still. This is gonna give a problem. So let me cancel ticket ID. All right, so let me just remove this. All right, so root ID, just change this to 4. All right, so because there are some issue with the relationship, so I have to close the table, remove the relationship. So just in case anything like that happen to you, you can delete the relationship. Yes, close, and I'm able to get back to my ridership table. Root ID is also supposed to be 4, so I'm not going to use that. So short text for ticket ID was number single, and this date, short date, is supposed to be date and time. All right, let's see how this looks now. All right, so really it's in the ridership table, the dates, they're kind of little bit messy, so I have to just fix them up. So because it's having what, day, month, year, so let me just try and fix this. So 315, so day, month, year would be, let me see what this did say here. So month, day, year, so this would be 12. All right, so you wouldn't have this issue in your exam, but I'm saying because it's an older version that's causing the problem now. 1, 2, so it would be 5/1/2, 2008. On /3/2. /3. All right, so as I said, the dates were deleted because of the whole formatting issue. So I had to re-enter the dates. All right, so that's it for that. So my table is now finished. So I need to now relate the table and enforce integrity. These are previously added. So I'm going to close. And how you relate the tables is primary key from one table to foreign key in the next. Right, so primary key in one table in this case, the foreign key in the next. And you enforce referential integrity. So for you to complete a relationship, you would have to set a bold line with the one on infinity, if that's the relationship. And you close and you save the relationship. All right, so that there's about 5.5 to 6 marks. Just to import the tables, type out the stuff, and relate them and enforce referential integrity. So what else we're looking at now? So there are other stuff that we, like the creation of list box and combo box, you can look at those as well. So that's a table related, and as I said, I think I'd have to do the report at a later time, but I'll just look at this part. So I'm just going to ask you guys to finish this. I'll just do the update query. So I created this update query. So give me a few seconds to just put it in the chat. And this is a question that we'll look at. We'll pause here for this evening.
What's the most like requirements that they would give us?
When you say requirements, so I mean in terms of how many
Like how
questions?
like we have yeah.
All right, so it's normally, you'd call it like 5 questions for each section. So for the database, you normally get about 5 questions, 4 to 5 questions there about. Now, man, remember you import the table, you get one update query, probably one cross-tab query, one report. Now, man, that's enough, man. Come on. But I'm tell you the same structure. This one is slightly different though. So that's why I gave you the update query. Anyway, somebody walk me through how them would do this update query. Anyway, what would be the approach for this update query?
So you can go back on in access, please.
What exactly you want? Because it's just the tables I did. So
I want to see the tables, the one with the. Let me see what the question says.
the date. Yeah, so
I want to see the
oh,
ones
you
with
trying to
the cash with the tickets. So it would be the ticket table.
yeah.
So sir, could we like add a new column to say like an updated fare, or is it that we need to change
No man, I just the
the
same.
info
Yeah,
that we
change
have
the existing
in
one.
fare, or would we need to?
No man, I just the
Okay.
one the
Okay,
fear
sir.
yeah change.
So okay. So go in create and then query design.
Create a say and query design. And which table we use?
It's a record table.
Alright, so we use the ticket fare, right? Alright, and then
So
I
update.
say audience I change it to update.
Update.
Alright, which field we're trying to update? The question there up top in the chat. So if you don't see it, it's a JUTC is exploring a potential fare restructuring and wants you to update the listed rates as follows. Cash tickets should be increased by 10%. Smart card tickets should reduce by 3%. So tell me how you do this. So far you need to tell me which field I got update now. So when you give me the query type, the table that I'm using, and but you need to tell me the field that you're updating now. Come on, somebody remember we have like 10 minutes, you know. So ticket cost, so that's the fear. Them call that fear. So the fear we're updating. Alright, how we're updating it? What we're updating it to? 10%, but it's based on a condition. So you have to put in the condition to do the update. How the condition, how you going to do that?
Sir, in the criteria, we would do a formula to fill in.
Go on, but you sure it's criteria? Well, Jada writing said that we're using an if statement, but where we put it? Alima, yes, so we're
Well,
using
it
the
would
if
be
statement, but
update
where?
to. Update
So
to.
there you go. All right, so let's look at that quickly. So remember for access is 2i, right? You know, put an equal sign because it's just updating this field to whatever. So how should it be updated? What should it be updated to? So the fear, we say if what? If the ticket category, that's what them call it. Look in the table and see what that is. If the ticket category is CA, what that means? CA mean cash, and that them say? Ticket category is equal to CA, so in quotes, CA. So a double quote use or single quotes in other. Let's try it. If ticket category is equal to CA, what we do? If it is CA, what we're going to do? Update it to increase it by 10%,
Increase
right?
it
So,
by 10%.
so it would be fear times what?
The 10%. No,
So 1.1, right?
1.1.
Come on,
Yeah.
1.1, that's the same thing. Else what? So that means if you didn't want to do a next if statement, but because it's just two ticket category we have, we don't have to do the second if. Everybody get that? We don't have to check if it's smart card because it's just cash or smart card we have. We don't have a next ticket category. Everybody good so far? So then this we're going to say this is going to be a fear times point what? 9, 7, something like that. Can reduce it by 3%. Everybody good with that? No, yes, maybe. Not sure. All right, which part of it you're not comfortable with, Miss Miller? Because this is the last thing we're going to do for today. And you do your other preparation. If you don't have questions, you.
Sir, I get it now.
All right, so we're good. So then would I just run this?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir, suppose it did have three. Suppose it had three categories, right? You would continue listing out all of the.
You would do a if again. So say we did do this way.
So it's
As what you are saying. Would I put a next if here so? And I say if ticket category. Let me zoom it so you can see it still. Make it a lot. So where are we? Would I do the same thing again? So if ticket category. What's the third one you want? So we could use the SC now, right? Smart
oh,
card. And then what would do? We'd do the same thing, right? And then where I say we're not gonna increase the next one, say that I just say fear, we're not gonna increase this one. And then we would have closed this if, and then close that one. And that would be it. So that is if we had 3 categories. And only 2 of them were increased. Or you could have do a filter now and just say only increase this one. Something like that. But this would work if you had 3 categories. So 6, then we'll go yes. So don't update your nets. They could just compare. So this is now 55, 43, 132. So we'll just check. I'm going to check the Excel file that we have just to show you that it would have been updated. So say this was 50 before, it is now 55. This was 45, it's now 43 and so forth. All right, so guys, we'll have to end here or pause here, however I want to view it. Yeah, man, you have to know, you have to get that one, audience. That is a must.
So, sir, I have a question, right?
Yes, Mr. Harry.
So, sir, like how we take basically almost 3 hours to work this out. We're gonna get those things in the exam to do, right?
What do you mean 3 hours for work it out? Remember, so you get, it's less things you get, man. Remember, we did like about 3 variations of one question. And me I explain and I repeat. So obviously, man, you're not gonna take it this long, man. Come on.
You don't know,
And you
sir.
basically finished. You basically finish. And you get like one question. Plus, when we're doing the log, we did multiple approaches to some of the columns, which you're not gonna do. All right, so here what I'm doing. So we have 2 options. Either I'll just finish up the database, add some questions, and then load it to YouTube. Or I'm not certain about this one because I was having internet connectivity issues. I just by chance I used Blackboard and it worked because it's YouTube I was going to use. And it was giving me issues. So what I would advise you guys to do is continue with the preparation, and I will either load this by Friday. If it's not loaded, then we can probably have like a quick 1 hour or something like that. Yeah, I'm gonna try to put it on YouTube though, audience, but because it's so long, it's going to take some time to get there. Probably Friday. About 6 or so, 6 to 7 Friday or something like that. I guess I could do 2 hours, 6 to 8 on Friday.
So sorry, you're not
Okay, sir, thank you.
Go again?
It won't be posted on all you.
I'm going to end the recording.